In today's show, we're looking at the Miami Heat. It's the last season review show. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com. And you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and we are available on all platforms. This is the last season review show. Next week, it is just all draft stuff. Multiple mock drafts. I think we're doing one more player scouting group of guys, draft chatter, and then the live draft show Thursday, June 22nd, 7:45 p.m. Eastern. We are starting it on YouTube. Join me. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. I want to get as many people there as possible. Hopefully, we beat the numbers that we had on last year's show. It was a good time. So, get over to that. But now we're here to talk about the Miami Heat, who obviously were a huge surprise this season. Warnie?
Let's get it on, Gilly.
All right. They finished 44 and 38. They had a net rating of negative 0.1. That was 20th in the NBA, the 25th best offense, the 7th best defense, and still made it to the NBA Finals. A lot of people will use this Heat situation as further evidence, well, the NBA regular season doesn't matter. You don't have to do anything. You just turn it on in playoffs, and I just fully reject that. This Heat team tried in the regular season. They desperately wanted to avoid the play-in. They lost the first play-in game. They just weren't good. They were trying so hard down the stretch to get into that 6th seed, and Brooklyn was giving it to them. Brooklyn was losing, and they couldn't do it. They didn't go on cruise control. Jimmy Butler didn't just sit out every game. He played basically every game from like January on. They just weren't good. And then they played unbelievable basketball for 3 rounds. Yes, some of the other teams may have shit the bed, Milwaukee and Boston. I'm looking at you guys, but they beat the Knicks. They just played well. And then they got cooked in the NBA Finals because they weren't that good of a team. It's an amazing run. All credit goes to them, but this doesn't change anything, I don't think, in terms of the way that teams should approach things and just hope that they can do a Miami. It's just so the reason that it's so rare is that it just doesn't happen. And it's not something you can rely on. And even if the Heat go into next season with that same thought process, it's just not going to be the same. Now, they could be making moves in the offseason. We hear their name bandied about for Bradley Beal, which we have heard many times. I actually think it's a possibility. Does it make them better? Is Bradley Beal an upgrade over Tyler Herro, who they played through the playoffs without? Probably. He probably is. Is he a better defender than Herro? Yeah. Is he a better passer? I don't know about that. Is he a better shooter? No. How much is that an upgrade? What they need to do is work out what's happening at power forward. They will need to work out what's happening at point guard as well. So if I had to put it into words, and this is, again, not to take anything away from what the Heat did. They were great. They were awesome in the playoffs. It's a fantastic achievement, and we loved seeing them do it. But the likelihood to me, if I had to choose, are they more likely to go back to the NBA Finals or to miss the playoffs? It's miss the playoffs. I would say they're probably not likely to miss the playoffs, but I'd say they have absolutely no chance. Not no chance, but it's very unlikely they go back to the NBA Finals. As great as it was for them, and as great as they've been with 2 finals appearances and another conference finals appearance in 3 of the last 4 years, that's fantastic. I just don't think that looking at the team, that it's a realistic thing to expect them to be as good as they were. Their best lineup last season, according to Cleaning the Glass, plus 19 on this lineup, was Gabe Vincent, Tyler Herro.
Everyone has a hero.
True.
0 people shouldn't have a hero.
Caleb Martin, Jim Butler, and Bam Adebayo. That was their best lineup. And obviously Herro wasn't available through the playoffs after breaking his hand. The interesting one there is going to be Gabe Vincent and what they do, and even Caleb Martin and his situation. Let's talk about free agency there. $29 million over the cap. They've got some decisions. Victor Oladipo is going to pick up that player option. He's injured again. He's going to miss a pretty big chunk, I would think, of next season. And if we saw him play this season, we know that he's just not a reliable guy. He's nothing against him. Its injuries have ruined him. He's never going to be the same player again. You don't rely upon him to be a rotation guy. But the big question marks here are players that played roles on this team. Kevin Love, is he someone they prioritize bringing back? Like, he was okay at times, but the limitations were pretty obvious. Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, guys that moved in and out of starting lineups for this team all season. Both guys are unrestricted free agents. I would expect that they want to pay up. They've got bird rights on both of these guys. They will want to pay to get Gabe Vincent back. Max Strus, I'm not sure about, because we saw a little bit of a resurgence from Duncan Robinson in the playoffs. If they are looking for ways to keep themselves away from too much tax payments and bringing Beal in, then it might not be that Strus comes back and he gets an offer somewhere else. I think Strus is a fine player. He's not a great player by any stretch. He obviously cooled off significantly in the NBA Finals. I don't think Vincent's a great player either. I think he's a solid starting. Well, no, he's a solid point guard. Is he better than Tyus Jones, for example? Don't know. The other one is Cody Zeller, who played as their backup center. So there's four guys there, Love, Vincent, Strus, Zeller, who all played roles in the finals, who are unrestricted free agents. Two of those guys, Zeller was on the team for 5 minutes, and Love joined as a buyout. He was on the team for 7 minutes. Some interesting things they need to do. And I wouldn't expect all four of those guys to be back. Maybe two of them. Maybe it's Love and Vincent. I don't know. But they've got a lot of things they need to decide what they do. The other one they've got as a restricted free agent is Omer Yurtseven, one of the most overrated players in the fantasy community, because he had that run when they were two centers injured the season before, and he put up great numbers and then was out of the rotation again because he sucks defensively. He's a little bit slow. He's never going to be able to play as a power forward type of guy. There's something there as maybe a third string guy, but I'm not as high on him, and I'm so not high on Yurtseven that I'm not even going to talk about him. I normally go through 11 players on these season preview or season review shows, and I'm not going to talk about Yurtseven in that group. I don't think that he is any future starter or future backup really at any sort of high level. And Yurtseven, despite being a guy that's played like 2 seasons, he's 25 already. I don't see it. I don't see it with him. He's a restricted free agent. Maybe they bring him back, but I don't think it's going to be a priority. The NBA draft, they do have a pick. It's pick number 18 according to my mock draft ADP data. That would put Jordan Hawkins in that range. There's some talk that Jordan Hawkins could go lottery. I wouldn't pick him in the top 20, but this is the range. But we know that they will be active in looking to move this pick or do whatever. Like, there's so many ways they can go. They will always be looking to keep the momentum running, and that might include throwing pick 18 in a deal that gets them Bradley Beal. I don't know. So there's no guarantee they keep this pick. There's so many options available at this spot for them. Who would I actually have at that spot? Let me have a look. I haven't done a recent mock draft for a couple of weeks, but I do have my big board. At 18 on my big board, I have Derek Whitehead, the pimple. I think it'd be awesome on this team. Honestly, replacing, obviously dealing with injury, but taking some of the minutes for Oladipo is not there. Having to replace Max Strus with legitimate starter upside. Yeah, I would definitely do that over Jordan Hawkins. But again, according to my ADP, mock draft ADP data, Hawkins would be the guy that is an option for them there. Today's episode is brought to you by... Is it brought to you by Game Time? I think it is, because I've got the Game Time things up, although it shouldn't be. It should be someone else, but they can come in later. Game Time is the app when you're looking for tickets to an event in your local area. Sports, comedy, music, theatre, whatever it is, Game Time's got it. You don't have to plan this stuff months in advance. You can just hop onto the Game Time app. They've got their flash deals, the notifications. Hey, something's happening tonight. You want tickets? Yeah, bang, here we go. Local flash sales as well on all of these things. You get views of the seat. You can see exactly what you're going to see from these seats. The lowest price guarantee as well. So if you find a price for those tickets in the same row and same section cheaper, they'll refund you 110% of the difference. They also send those tickets directly to the app on your phone. You don't have to dig through your emails and let me just find it. Let me open the attachment. Here goes my ticket. Open the app. Bang, there it is. You're ready to go. Walk straight in. Saving money. Absolute convenience. Not planning this stuff in the future. Game Time is the hookup that you need to get these tickets to whatever it is that you want to go and see. And with summertime coming up for you guys in the States, and I'm going to be over there in a couple of weeks, looking forward to getting my second summer of the year. It's the perfect time to be going to events. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms of play again. Create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Let's go to the first player that we're going to talk about. You know who it is?
Because he's my butler.
It's Jim. And a guy that I wasn't particularly interested in drafting this season, but his ADP ended up at 30 because a lot of people had the same idea. And Jimmy Butler in the past has had numerous injuries and would sit out numerous times because of these lower body injuries. And it didn't really happen. He was the 14th ranked player per game. He was 23rd in points leagues. He was 17th in totals. He played 64 games, which is marginally below league average, 33 minutes. He's almost 34, 26 usage. He averaged 23 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.8 steals, shot 54, 35, and 85% from the line. Now, we know what Jimmy Butler does from a fantasy point of view. It's very straightforward what Butler's able to do to help you. The scoring's nice. It's okay. But it's free throws at really high volume, and it's steals, 1.8 steals. If that's a 1.4 steals, Butler's not a top 25 player. That really does buoy. I don't know why I said it the American way, buoy. We just say boy. It really buoys his overall value. And that's why you see the difference in category leagues versus points leagues rankings, because steals just don't carry the same weight. So the free throws are good. The assists are nice. The points are nice. The steals are great. And the volume on the free throws are great. That's what he is. That's what his two big categories are. Yeah, the points are okay. Yes, the assists are okay, but it's really that free throw percentage, and it's the steals. And at age 34, do we trust that Jimmy Butler, who, as I said again, played just a ton of games more than expected? He missed time early in the season. I don't know what it was. Was his toe, his back, his knees? I don't know. He's always got something going on from falls and that sort of stuff. But he basically played every game from... In the 2023 portion of the season, he missed one game until we got to the end part of the season where he sat the final game of the season and the second final game of the season. He missed one game in 2023. So he played all the way through. And that's just not what Jimmy Butler does usually. He normally misses quite a bit of time, back-to-backs, games off, through lower body injuries. And as we get older, 34-year-old Jimmy Butler, do I want to bank on him being a 64, 65 game player again and averaging 1.8 steals? I don't think I do. And I know I'm not going to look at this and go, Jimmy Butler was ranked 14th, therefore he's going around the turn or in the second round. Maybe the end of the second round. I don't know how it's all going to play out, but I wouldn't feel super confident in believing in that. Now, his advanced stats are unbelievable, obviously. 99th percentile EPM, 12th overall in Darko. Remember, Darko's a advanced metric that takes a look at what you've done, plus trying to project forward as well. And the fact that these guys who played through to the finals, their numbers do improve and they play more minutes and their value does go up. And you see that with Jimmy there as well, up to 12th. And LeBron had him 98th. He was unbelievably impactful. It was pretty silly that he did miss out on an all-star berth as well, although he was better second half of the season. My fear fantasy-wise is maybe he's not a 54% shooter. Maybe he's not a 1.8 steals guy. Maybe he becomes a 32-minute guy as he gets a year older. That's all the worries I have. I don't look at Jimmy Butler's numbers there and go, well, actually, he gets better. I don't know how that happens. He had 25.5 usage. If Beal does come in, does that reduce Jimmy Butler's usage? Does it reduce Jimmy Butler's assist rate? Possibly. So when we're trying to value where Butler sits, I do think we're going to see a bit of a drop-off for him next season. Won't necessarily be huge, but I definitely know that I'm not taking him early second round. I'm not going to be doing that. You can see that on his fantasy points graph, bunch of missed games early, and then just played all the way through, apart from those couple of games missed towards the end of the season, which is, again, a little bit of a rarity for players. I think there's also a bit of a narrative on Jimmy, this playoff Jimmy stuff, which, again, not to shit on him, because he was great through a lot of the playoffs, but it's also one of those things that you hear it get mentioned, and they never talk about the downsides. Because he was really great in the Bucks series, and then basically for the next 3 rounds after that, he was equivalent to the regular season or worse. I think he shot way worse. He played like 7 more minutes per game and had equivalent stats to what he did in the regular season. And you can say it's because of the injury, and maybe it is. Maybe because he hurt his ankle in the Knicks series that impacted him. But he also turned in 2 huge performances in the series against the Celtics, game 1 and 2, that the ankle didn't seem to be bothering him. He just struggled. And he just wasn't the same guy. And I say this again, not to denigrate Butler or the Heat or their run or anything like that. But again, just another data point that be really cautious when believing in narratives. Because you don't always get the full picture sent out to you for you to understand or to make those assessments on. And his EPM graph, well, after that first round there, look at how badly it just drops off. Like, he became not great. He fell off significantly as the playoffs went on. And it's not, again, because we don't want to be negative about players, because he was great and getting the team that far, but it is important when holistically looking at the performance of teams and players and projecting moving forward. Bam! 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 I was really shocked when I looked at Bam Adebayo's numbers to see that he averaged 20 points a game. I didn't think that he did. Don't know why I didn't think that, but they had 3 players average 20 points a game this season. Bam was drafted at pick 22. He ended up ranked 28th, 35th in points league, so that's about right. Second round, third round. Bam has lost a lot of value from where he was in the past, but he's changed his value. He used to be a guy that wouldn't even dream of scoring 20 points a game, but might get 5 assists per game. And we had an idea that would happen when Kyle Lowry arrived, and it did. He's averaged just 3 assists per game. And he doesn't block shots really at all anymore. For a center, 0.8 is a bad number. But he's turned into a high usage player. He gets more steals than the average center as well. 1.2 steals. And I think he's just sort of going to hover around this third round range, maybe second round if you feel a little bit more reliable with him. He played 75 games this season. He missed a ton the year before. He's only 26, so there's still room for him to improve. And yeah, as I said, I was surprised to see him average 20 points. He also had 25 usage, the same as Butler. And I think it's the same as Herro as well, all 25 usage. I think we'll go into next season thinking Bam probably is close to a 20-point per game scorer again. I don't know that he ever becomes any sort of shot blocker. But I do think there is a realm where the assists do jump back up. Yeah, Lowry's phasing out a little bit, but they've also gone a little bit away from Bam in that role. Because not like Lowry played a huge role this season, even though he played more than you expected he did. I think there's maybe a little bit of improvement here. Like, let's forget the assists. Let's forget the steals, which are good. They might stick. Let's forget the blocks. They're not coming, I don't think. He's never going to be a 3-point shooter. He shot 8% from 3. Just took like 2, I think, for the season. Just never took them. But I think we might get a little bit more scoring. I think we might get a bit of a bump in assists, which might push him a little bit higher. Still heading into peak territory. 86th percentile EPM, 29th overall in Darko. He's just a really good player. At times he can get overrated, but also at times he can get underrated. I just think LeBron really doesn't like him. 68th percentile overall. But he was just really strong. He had a nice little run there in the middle there. Where you can see that blue line on the fantasy points graph. That's where he really started to ramp up the offensive load and do more in terms of scoring. And that sort of carried on. So I do think Bam, I look at it and go, 20 points, that's weird. But I think about it, he probably does it again and probably goes a little bit higher. Thought his finals were pretty good. He really had no chance against Jokic. Like, the bloke's not that big. He's 6'9". But I thought offensively he played pretty well. He was all right. He had some moments at times where he did struggle. But I thought overall he handled himself really well through the NBA playoffs. And I do think maybe there's not another level to Bam's game, but maybe there's another half level to Bam's game. I think that's possible, that we could see an extra half level coming. Today's episode is also brought to you by Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs stretch khaki shorts. They're designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and the leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Now, when you've got sculpted thighs like I do, you don't need that extra sculpt, but this extra sculpt is unbelievable. I have not literally gotten out of my Bird Dog shorts. They're on every single day. I love the Yeti style tumbler that they gave me as well with every order that you make using our code. They're just comfortable. I've shown you my legs before on this with these Bird Dog shorts. I'm not going to do it again. I'm not going to give away too much leg content, but these are amazing shorts. And they transition from whatever you want to do. Going to play basketball, going to the gym, going for a run, going for a walk, going to the shops, going to a restaurant, going to a bar, going on a date. Bird Dog shorts can cover every situation. They look great. They feel comfortable. Imagine getting workout shorts that look like they're not workout shorts. That's what Bird Dogs give you. So go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. Get this free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. Get the tumbler. You won't want to take them off. It is actually a guarantee. You won't want to take them off. We promise you. They are amazing. birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. I want to do it again because I know it pisses people off.
Everyone has a hero. True. 0 people shouldn't have a hero.
Tyler Herro. Thought he was an interesting player this season. Won the Sixth Man of the year before, which I wasn't 100% on board with that. He moved into a starting role this season. I think at times there was some, not that it was bad for the team, but I don't think it was always their best situation. But at times he played like their best player. He played 35 minutes a game with 25 usage. He's 23. He averaged 20 points per game. He shot 38 from 3, only 43 overall, but 93 from the line. And this is, when he played for Kentucky, he was like a 90, I think he shot like 97% from the line. Went back, okay. He missed like 1 free throw all season, I believe. Don't quote me on that. It's similar to that number though. Maybe it was 2 free throws for the season in Kentucky. So while it's very hard to project a player to be a 93% free throw shooter, Herro's done it multiple times. So he is a great free throw guy. The problem you have with him is defensively. And for fantasy, it's just never going to be big numbers. Like 0.8 steals, 0.2 blocks are bad numbers. He averaged 4 assists with 5 rebounds. He had a lot of big rebound games this season, which I think is part a function of the fact they went so small and they didn't play any power forwards. So Herro was basically at times, despite being like a point guard, was also playing like a power forward because Butler and Martin, the 2 guys out there, weren't the rebounding option. So that enabled Herro to go 20, 5.5, and 4. And I think, again, next season, if Gabe Vincent is the starting point guard, the ball is going to be in Herro and Butler's hands as the point guards. And Vincent sort of plays off them a little bit. So, yeah, all these numbers are really strong. He was 62nd overall, 65th in points leagues. I look at what he did with 25 usage, 35 minutes, 38% three-point shooting, 3 threes a game. What gets better? What brings him to a top 30 player? Defense is the number one thing, and it's not going to happen. He's not going to be a steals guy ever. He's not going to be a blocks guy. That's not going to happen. So what else can happen? Can he be a 25-point-per-game scorer? And I think the answer is yes. Whether it happens on the Heat team next season, I don't know. But I do think that there is room for him to have a top 50 season. His name is always brought up in deals. We hear all these hypothetical Damian Lillard deals, which I don't believe are happening for a single second. But his name is always brought up. The Bradley Beal deal comes up. His name is brought up. And I think if he did go to a different team where there wasn't 2 other 25 usage guys in Butler and Adebayo, that he would get 28 usage. He would average 25 points and it would be a top 40 player. And yes, the field goal will be a problem. And that's the other way he gets into the top 50 is 44 field goals become 46.5. He's still really, really young. EPM loved him, 82nd percentile. Darko, not quite as good, 108th. LeBron, 56th percentile. But a consistent improvement. He's a guy that I haven't loved as a player moving forward, but he's definitely improved a lot over his career, and I think he's a useful enough guy. There are big downsides to what he does. Like you want to compare him to a Jordan Poole. I think he's a better player than Jordan Poole. Is he better than Anthony Simons? Yeah, I think he is. He's shown a little bit more with that rebounding ability and passing ability than both those guys. Maybe Poole's a better passer. It's close. But those guys will be lumped together. Next guy coming through in that sort of group as that point guard, shooting guard, combo guard. Maybe that's like an Emmanuel Quickly sort of a player. I think Herro's probably the best of that group. But his future's up in the air. But I also think that what ends up happening, if they do trade him, it's almost, not every situation, but any that I can think of, it's going to be better for him. I think it's going to be better for him. So if you are looking at him in Dynasty, I don't think he's ever got top 20 value, or probably even top 30 value, because he's never going to be a guy that goes 26, 6, and 6. He's never going to be Devin Booker, let's say, in terms of Booker's numbers. Because Booker's able to get those 6 assists, good rebounds, with a steal. I don't think Herro's that guy, but I can't 100% rule that out. On the right team where he averages 26, 3.5 threes, he could average 6.5 boards. He could average 5.5 assists. That is possible. I'm not going to rule it out. I'm not going to predict it, but I do think that this is prime opportunity for Herro. If it is on another team, if it's in Miami, it's probably 2 years away. But on another team, there is a chance to get to be 90% Devin Booker. I think that's possible. And from someone who is a Herro hater, as some would say, yeah, I think it's fair. I think that's fair. He missed a bunch of time early in the season as well. Ended up playing 67 games. But overall, I was skeptical of him becoming a starter and doing similar things, but it worked out. And at times, he was the number one usage player ahead of Butler and Bam, which, again, was a big surprise to me. You can see he just played that one game in the playoffs and missed all that time. And his EPM and his effectiveness was waxing and waning. And by waxing and waning, I mean it was high earlier, then it was shithouse for the second half of the year. And I question how much having Herro in a big minute, big usage role leads to winning. But if a team acquires him, maybe that's not the point. Maybe they're not the teams that are at the pointy end of the winning scale. And he's able to cook for 3 or 4 years and put up big numbers. Because that can happen. Right? Not every team is the best team in the NBA. And when you're going from one of the top 4 teams in the NBA because they're looking to get better, you probably go to a worse situation, which overall helps his fantasy value. All right.
Double cheeked up on a Thursday afternoon.
Kyle Lowry had an ADP of 104, and I was actually pretty in on that. I was like, wow, that's really, really low. I know he struggled the year before, but I'll draft him there. It's hard to find a point guard. It was him or Mike Conley in that area. And he was much worse than I thought. Not that much worse than that ADP, 116th, 126th in points leagues. And when you're drafting around that spot, round 9 or so, it's not a disaster to miss on it, but it was a miss. And that's always the risk when someone's 36, which he was last season. They're just going to drop completely off. Now Lowry is 37. He played 55 games. Amazingly, he played 31 minutes a night. But very low usage, 16%, 11 points, 2 threes, 5 assists and a steal, shot 35% from 3, 40% overall. And this is what happens. You get to this age and shit falls off. I've loved Kyle Lowry as a player for many years, but he's never touching 31 minutes again. It's just not going to happen. Whether it's on this team or he's a part of a deal or whatever, he is, you would think, moving into a phase of his career where he's not a starter, he's not a backup, he's like whatever a combination of those words is, a stack up. Like he's a guy that might play 25 minutes a night in and out of the lineup, play starters minutes off the bench sometimes, plays bench minutes as a starter sometimes. I think that's sort of where we're heading, and that probably turns him to not be a draftable player. Now, in terms of advanced stuff, it's actually pretty good. 79th in EPM, 78th in estimated wins, 88th overall in Darko. Yes, big drop from when he was one of the best 15 or 20 players in the NBA for periods according to advanced metrics. And you can see on that Darko graph the big drop off. And it's going to continue to decline. But he still was effective at times. Now, we saw last year he missed a bunch of time with personal reasons. And then this year he had that nebulous knee injury designation, which cost him a bunch of time throughout the end of the season. And I think that's sort of the beginning of the end. Now, Larry's had these knee problems for years, and it was, ironically, it was him and Jimmy Butler, the two guys who you'd go, every year, post-All-Star break, man, they're just going to miss so much time because they run so many minutes into their bodies and they play at such a hard level that they just can't last the whole season. And now it's creeping in, not so with Butler, but more for Lowry, that it's just creeping into a whole season. And circling back to Butler, not saying they're the same player, but the career path of high minutes, high intensity, high body collision game style, which Butler and Lowry both have had, you worry that when Jimmy hits 36 that this is coming. That's my concern with Jimmy as well, that the body will break down based on the way that he's played the game early on in his career. You see all that time missed in the middle there for Lowry. He had some moments in the playoffs, some big games, but I think his time as a full-time starter is probably done. Caleb Martin entered the season as the starter at power forward, lost the position at the end of the year to Kevin Love, but it didn't really matter because he played starters minutes anyway, and which is fine. Like, it doesn't matter for us fantasy-wise. He was a guy that I was okay with taking that last pick on. Hey, he's going to be the starter. Whoever's the starter there, let's take a flyer on. But overall, fantasy-wise, like, he didn't blow us away. And again, it's one of those prisoner-of-the-moment type situations. He had that huge series against Boston. You could argue that he deserved Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Fine. Maybe he did. It doesn't really matter either way, but maybe he did. He was that good. But people look at that, go, man, this is it. The Caleb Martin breakout. How high are we going to draft him in fantasy? And I've said, look, mate, like, yes, he's playing really well. It is 7 games. He started all season, played 29 minutes a game, and really wasn't a must-hold or must-roster player all season. And we saw in the finals that it dropped off. But it'll be burnt in our heads that Caleb Martin was awesome through the playoffs, or through, but it wasn't the case. Like, he wasn't awesome all through the playoffs. And if we look at what he did in the regular season, like 29 minutes, 14 usage, 9 points, a 3 at 36%, 5 rebounds, a steal, 82% or 81% from the line. They're mediocre numbers that if he's on your roster, fine. It's helpful. But when you're looking to stream in or you're looking to add players or someone who gets a boost from a temporary injury, you've got no problem jacking him right off. Like he just goes. And do they enter next season with the Martin-Butler pairing as their 3-4 again? Probably. I don't know what else they're doing to get. Who else is coming in? Is it Haywood Highsmith? Is it Nikola Jokic that is going to be the starter there? I don't think so. I think they'll probably start Martin most of the games. Don't even know if Kevin Love's going to be back. But is he going to be more than 15% usage? Is he going to play more than 29? Maybe he should play more than 29 minutes a game. And maybe he is draftable towards the end of a draft. But he's 28. The conference finals was great. The NBA finals, not so great. And you got to remember everything that happened, not just the select 5 games where he was awesome. You can see his fantasy points profile there doesn't tell you a huge amount. But you can also see on his EPM that he did elevate his play through the NBA playoffs. He was great. It's absolutely no denying that he was great through the NBA playoffs. So he put up some good numbers. But he wasn't infallible, and he struggled a lot in the finals against Denver. And that's a part of everything. And it's a part of things when we assess this player. Like he's not, I don't think, any sort of future star in the making. He's Caleb Martin. He's a solid role player who might play 1 to 2 extra minutes a night. But I still think when one of my always tests in Dynasty is you look at a roster and go, do the Heat look at this and go, yep, we are bang set with Caleb Martin? Or do they like, man, we actually probably need to upgrade that position? And I think if you look at it honestly, they'll be like, we need to upgrade this position. Whether they can do it or not, I don't know. But what it means is they might go into next season and not upgrade it, but they might be looking, well, trades during the season or the year after. How do we get this position better? And that's where Dynasty value can be fleeting and can be up for a bit, and then it can tail off pretty quickly. We'll talk about Victor Oladipo now, who really sad state of affairs for Oladipo, obviously, with his career. You can see that Darko graph of just, it was hovering as an okay player, went to Indiana, exploded, and got injured, and he's never been the same, and he honestly never will be. Another significant injury towards the end of the season for Oladipo. He did finish 173rd this season, which was much higher than I anticipated. He played 26 minutes a night, which again, I did not think that Victor Oladipo played 26 minutes a night. He had a delayed start to the season as he returned from another injury. 21 usage, 10 points, but under 40% from the field, 33% from 3, 75 from the line, 11, 3, and 3.5 with 1.4 steals. The only way he was really able to be a 173rd ranked player was through steals, because he just can't shoot anymore. And he really had that one massive outlier season in Indiana with big steals, big blocks, great efficiency. And even the year after, he dropped way off before he got hurt, and now it's just a cascading effect. And he was drafted in 14% of leagues, Victor Oladipo, at a number 140, which didn't make a ton of sense to me. I never really saw that role there when there was Vincent, Strus, Lowry, Herro, who were all probably ahead of him in the pecking order. And still somehow he got 26 minutes in the 42 games. But unfortunately, injuries have ruined it. But we've seen enough to know that it's just, I don't think, coming back. And another significant injury now. As you can see, he missed that bunch of time in the middle. He had some moments, but towards the end, Spoelstra was just like, nah, bro, like we need someone else in there. And it wasn't just injuries that cost him games out this season. He still can be useful defensively, absolutely, but 31, another lower body injury. It feels cooked-ish. Let's talk Maxi Strus, who did start the season before, came off the bench a lot this season, started the season out relatively well, but overall, for a guy that's value is, hey, you are an elite shooter, he wasn't an elite shooter. 219th in category leagues, 199th in points leagues. He's 27, he played 80 games, 28 minutes a night, so it's sort of sub-starter. It's not quite starter, but it's close. 18 usage, but 35% from 3. 41% from the field. And there's just nothing else. Half a steal, 2 assists, 3 rebounds. It's 2.5 threes. And if he does jump up to become a guy that looks like he's a rosterable player, it'll be because he's hitting 3.5 threes and he gets 0.2 turnovers. That's the reason that he would jump up higher. Will a team take a chance on him and think there's value? Yeah, maybe. Can he be a useful player as a shooter? Sure. But when you compare him to like a Luke Kennard, for example, in Memphis, is he a better player than Luke Kennard? I don't think so. I don't think he is. He's a guy that is a shooter, but 35% is not good. He had that massive hot run versus Boston and then couldn't hit jack shit against Denver. And that was basically the story of the season for Strus. I don't really see any path for him to become a useful fantasy guy. The role here in Miami was strong. And even if he went to another team and they went, oh, you're going to be our starter, like, would he do any more than like Reggie Bullock in terms of minutes, or Tim Hardaway in Denver, or in Dallas, who's a lower usage player than Hardaway? I don't see the pathway for Strus at age 27, the Winter Soldier. Of course, that's a legendary nickname. Would he be able to do more than this? I don't think so. I don't think he is more than this player. So I don't think that it's like, well, we wait until there's an extra opportunity, or he's going to blow up if he goes to another team. I don't see that with Strus. You look at that EPM graph of how much it jumped up in the playoffs with a lot of that Boston stuff, and then it did really fall off towards the end there. He had some moments. He's good at times, but overall, the stat set, he's not particularly friendly for fantasy. Let's talk Kevin Love now quickly, because he was somehow drafted in 40% of leagues. Why? I have no idea. 137th AD, but why? I know why. It's because the year before, he had some fluky moments with Cleveland, and people thought that it was going to continue, which it never was. And he started out shooting okay for the Cavs, hurt his thumb, and then couldn't hit a shot, was out of their rotation, got bought out, came to Miami, started, had some positive moments in the playoffs, but in the end, the struggles returned. He played 20 minutes a night with 19 usage. He's 35 years of age. He finished outside the top 230 in fantasy. He shot 33% from 3 and 39% overall. 8 points, 6 rebounds. He's never going to get defensive stats. His position now is backup center, even though they were playing him sort of at the 4 at times, because the defense is just a huge problem now. And while we all love Kevin Love as a guy and as a past fantasy producer, he's just not this guy anymore, very clearly. 62nd ranked, or 62nd percentile on EPM, 165 in Darko. You can see that the drop-off coming. That's just what happens when you get older. And I don't know whether they bring him back. Maybe they do. Might be pretty nice living in Miami for Love. But that 20 minutes a night feels like, upper level. And again, we talk Caleb Martin, but do you want to go into your season where your power forwards are Caleb Martin and Kevin Love? Can you find an upgrade there? Like, you bloody want to. So maybe that's what they do at pick 18, although a rookie at pick 18 is probably not improving things there. Is it G.G. Jackson? Is it Noah Clowney? They should draft Noah Clowney. I don't know that they will. But there is a gaping hole still at that power forward position, and Kevin Love doesn't fix it. You can see the big gap there after he was taken out of the Cavs rotation. He had some good moments early in the season, but fell off, hurt his thumb, and never really recaptured it. And he's 35. Like, we're not expecting Kevin Love to change a huge amount here. Again, some positive moments in the playoffs, very matchup dependent, but defense is a real concern with him. It took me a while to get to Gabe Vincent, but here we are. I've referenced him tangentially through the show, but the reason I got this far before I talked about him is because he was bad. He was bad in fantasy, 242nd per game, 234th in points leagues. He played 26 minutes a night. He was the starter at the end of the year, and there were some moments where he was useful enough. But overall, 9 points, 2 rebounds, 2.5 assists in 26 minutes. Because even as a starter, you are playing next to Tyler Herro, you are playing next to Jimmy Butler, you are playing next to Bam Adebayo. And you don't have the cachet that Kyle Lowry does to be a more primary ball handler. He shot 33% from 3. He should be a better shooter from 3, but he's never really proven that. 87 from the line, 0.9 steals. That's actually a horrendous fantasy profile. Now, I like Gabe Vincent as a player. I think he's proven that he can be a guy that is a starting point guard for a time. But like I said earlier, he's a Tyus Jones level of player. And if he is your starting point guard, you look at your roster and you go, probably need a new point guard. If we want to get further, we need a new point guard. No offense to Gabe Vincent, but that's how you'd look at it. You're never going to be like, we are set at point guard with Gabe Vincent there. And if this team does have Herro and Butler and Bam and that's still there, like, he might play 32 minutes a night and average 12 points and 2.2 threes and get 4 assists, but there's no upside in that. There's no super high value in that. It might be the 130th best player, best case scenario. And he's not 23. He's 27. So we are in a dynasty situation where the next year or two might be his best years, and I'm not even sure how good they're going to be. LeBron hated him, negative 1.34, that's 13th percentile. Darko, 286th. Estimated wins, 63rd percentile. Like, he's all right, but no advanced stat has ever said that Gabe Vincent's the answer to anything. He had some moments early in the year where he was out, but yeah, there's some solid big minute games there. You can see towards the end on that graph, that red line, that was when Lowry was out. He didn't respond in kind with big minutes, with big production, because he was sort of like a weird placeholdery guy, bring the ball up and give it to others and sort of get out of the way. And with the way this team is structured, I don't really see why or how that's going to change. he was better down the stretch and he started in the playoffs. And I think, again, if they come back and he's re-signing with his team, that he would be the starter over Kyle Lowry. But he would probably be a 29-minute starter and Lowry plays 25, and it'd be lots of mixing and matching and chopping and changing. And he'd just be a low-usage guy who doesn't get an opportunity to generate numbers, would be my guess. I could be very wrong on that, but I just don't see the high upside. I'm going to talk about Haywood Highsmith briefly. He's 26. He was 339th in fantasy, 18 minutes a night, 4 points, 3.5 rebounds. You talk about the power forward options. He showed at times he can be an okay NBA player. I think that, again, he's a little bit older. The advanced stuff is relatively rough, but he did improve on Darko as the season went on. And I just think there's a little bit of something where we talk about, hey, the Heat always like to pluck these random players and see how they can do things. And I think Highsmith, it's either him or it's a Jamal Cain, who's got an opportunity as well next season, that could just find themselves in a larger role. Like if Kevin Love doesn't return, like I would expect Highsmith is part of the rotation most nights. There's not going to be huge amounts there to get excited about, 12% usage. Defensive stats can be okay with him. He's not a bad defender. He's got some shooting upside, some rebounding upside. He's a little bit bigger than Caleb Martin. But he's just a name to pay marginal attention to. Thought he had some decent moments in the playoffs as well. He held up okay in that situation. The last guy I'm going to talk about is Little Chungus, Nikola Jokic, who I was not interested in him in the NBA draft at all. I know I got a little pushback on that. People were like, this guy's great. I didn't see it. And he got an opportunity early in the season to start some games for Miami and didn't do anything with them. And then he just didn't play. Yeah, he did have an injury, but he did not play. He didn't see the court in an NBA game in 2023 until the playoffs. I'll show you the graph of that in a second, but he just did not play. He averaged 5 points in 14 minutes, 19 usage. He shot 23% from three. Yuck. 41% overall. 95 from the line is good. Half a steal is all right. 2 rebounds in 14 minutes is pretty bad. He's 377th in category leagues. He just struggled. Now, he was 19, and it was always going to be hard for him. There were people who did think that he'll come in as a rookie and be their power forward starter, which was never going to happen as a 19-year-old who was very, very raw. And he's not the guy that you think he is in terms of, well, he's a white, tall European. He's got to be this knockdown shooter. He hasn't really proven that anywhere yet. And even if you go look at what he did in the G League, he played 12 G League games. He played 26 minutes a night. And the numbers are bad. 10 points per game in 26 minutes. 25% shooting from three. 6 rebounds. 0.8 steals, 0.7 blocks. Now, he did average 3.5 assists, which is interesting. And that's where he does have a little bit of upside value as a passing big man. And he's still very, very young. But my priors on him heading into the draft last year were like, I don't really like this guy. I don't really see the upside. I'm not convinced on the shooting. He came in and he sort of not proved me right, but didn't prove me wrong. Where I didn't go, oh, wow, I was way off on the evaluation of Jokic. So it's really hard for me to look at him and say, well, yep, there is a future star here. And I do think that we'll get a significant improvement from Jokic heading into next season. I think they would hope that they could rely upon him to maybe be a rotation player. But I also wouldn't want to rely on it. When you look at the estimated plus-minus graph, just look at that blue line of just how many games he just didn't play down the stretch and then got into some games in the playoffs. I wouldn't look at that green average or anything. That's a 5-game moving average. And the fact that he played like 1 game there at the end of December and then didn't play again until May, that pushes that average way up. It's a very non-representative sample size. What did he play overall? 13 games, I think? Or 15 games during the season and 13 minutes a night. He just didn't play, and we didn't get a huge sample. And then when we saw him in the G League, played a similar amount of games, the numbers are almost exactly the same, despite playing double the minutes, which is, again, it's a little concerning. We're not writing him off. We don't like to write off players after 1 year at all. But he didn't do anything where I go, oh yeah, let's just wait. I'm not super interested. And that will do it for me today. That is all of the team previews done. All 30 teams in the books. NBA draft full-time next week. Looking forward to it. Guys, follow this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on the Odyssey app. And on YouTube, thumb it up and leave your comments down below. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.